So the hike means we're paying essentially 3.3 cents a liter more to fill up the gas tank, or about $1.65 for a 50-liter tank. So here's how the rebate part of it works. For those in Ontario, it's different in every province. So Ottawa starts with a basic credit of $140,000 per individual. Then if you have a credit for a spouse, it would be $70. Credit also for children, $35 per child. So if you only have one child and you're partnered, you're looking at a $145 rebate, but you get that 4 times a year. And the first one's coming this month. Let's go to Moshe Lander. He's an economics professor at Concordia University. We'll talk about the math with him. Moshe, thanks for joining us today. I know every situation is different, but do you think Canadians generally are getting more back than they spend? I know there's been a report on this. Is that your indication as well?
Yes, it is true. The average Canadian gets back more as a lump sum, like you said, starting today, every 3 months, than what they pay in the tax. The problem is that when you get that lump sum, it's just direct deposited into your account. And there's so much activity in most Canadians' account that you don't even realize that it's happened. And so it feels a lot smaller than what it actually is. But Canadians get back more on average than what they pay.
This might be a silly question because I know we don't do that anymore. But would it make a difference to get a check in the mail?
It would, and that's exactly it. If you could actually see the money, then you might feel a little bit better about it. Morella, all of us get paid through direct deposit, right? So we don't even think about the top line item for what we get paid. We just see what's direct deposited. So we don't see all of those deductions that go on in the middle. And so in our brains, we process that our take-home pay is our pay. And so that's why a lot of Canadians also feel that they're underpaid as well.
Yeah. Let's talk about the carbon tax as it's reflected in other products, because we know, of course, we see it in gas. People who woke up today went, wow, gas is more expensive today than it was yesterday. We know we pay for it in our heating for natural gas, for example. But every time we buy something, it's likely producers who have to deal with paying more for carbon output are putting some of that onto consumers. Do we see that breakdown when we get a receipt?
No, there's some places where you do, right? So if you fly, for example, they will tell you essentially how much carbon you're emitting, and they'll offer you the ability that if you want to top up what's already a very high flying bill, you can pay for your carbon offsets. And so some places will offer you that opportunity, but that's more as an act of kindness or more to put it in your face than it really is a breakdown of who pays what. So most Canadians aren't aware as to how much of that increase is showing up at the actual receipt and how much of that is being absorbed by producers.
Okay, is there a way to make this more fair, if you kind of see it as unfair, or a way to explain this to people so that they understand the offset? I mean, because clearly people are pretty upset about even just seeing the price of gas go up the way it is.
I think people are upset in general, Morella, and so this is just one thing to be upset about, and I think that's exactly the point then, is that people are just targeting their anger here. The way that I would explain it to my students, the way that I would explain it to anybody who asks me, is that for decades, we have essentially lived on subsidized fuel. So it's not that the government's actually been paying a subsidy, it's that when you factor in the true cost of fuel, it's not just the extraction, it's not just the exploration cost that the gas and oil companies have to take on, it's the environmental cost as well. And for decades, we've never charged that particular cost. So in a way, we've been living on subsidized fuel. The point of the tax now is to say, hey, listen, there's an additional cost beyond just exploration and extraction. There is an environmental cost as well. And so if producers and consumers don't want to pay it voluntarily, that's fine. Then we are going to impose it so that you now think about the consequences of your action. And it's to try and balance the playing field then against cleaner energy sources that don't create carbon emissions and don't create that extra environmental cost.
Okay, in a wider view, how does this help the economy?
So it creates a proper pricing scheme then. And so the whole point of decisions among consumers and producers is that you need to have price as the most important signal for what you're going to do. And so if that signal has been distorted for decades, then your decisions have been distorted for decades. And so the way that it's going to benefit the economy in the medium to long run is that a lot of us are going to start to reconsider whether we want to drive those gas guzzling automobiles, whether we want to move towards something a little more environmentally friendly, like say an electric car, moving closer to work, walking, public transport, bikes. And of course, the ramifications for all of that, too, is that it could lead to a healthier lifestyle because we're not reliant on our car as much. And so there's a lot of benefits here. If there's businesses that go down, that's really unfortunate. But that labor always gets absorbed just the same way that blacksmiths 100 plus years ago got absorbed into other industries. The idea of the conservative leader that this is going to create job loss, it might, but it'll also create job gains, too, because there's going to be a whole set of industries that come out of this now that wouldn't have existed if this tax didn't exist.